Hey, everybody, you're listening and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie. No, you don't see Caleb on the screen, but you do see his flag because we're hopping on a Zoom. He had a previous commitment tonight, but we have somebody great sitting in with us. You may know him as the artist of Lil Depressed Boy or Burn the Orphanage, co-writer of that too. You may know him as the star of Self-Obsessed, the writer of Iceman, the writer of Go Go Power Rangers. And he's even dabbled in the worlds of DC and Gem and the Holograms. And he has a book coming out in July now with the revised solicitations, co-writer of Getting It Together. And he's going to talk about a whole bunch more. Please welcome back to the show, I believe for the third time, Sina Grace.
Woo!
Hey!
I have some bad news. Getting It Together is going to be even later.
Oh well.
We just didn't know what was going to be happening with comic stores, and it's a book that everyone's proud of, and it's also, it's not a, I mean, the concept is it's like a modern day Friends, but that's not a book that sells like tens of thousands of copies just on. So we were like, all right, we got to wait till, we know that people can really go into shops and feel comfortable and, window shop a little bit and all that stuff. So it's a bummer because it's like, essentially done. But anyway, hi, it's nice to be here. Third time.
Okay. Well, you actually get there. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, and you do actually have a trade that is out now for Ghosted in LA. So that is available right now if you have not yet read it. In fact, we did talk about it last week, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. What did you say? I didn't listen.
Horrible.
All of the best things, and we're going to talk about it again today. So, yay.
Okay, goody gumdrops.
Okay. So, Sina, first of all, how you doing during these quarantine times?
I'm okay. I'm good. Luckily, already used to working from home. So super knock on wood that I have work opportunities keeping me busy. What's been the weirdest update I can give people is that I got this advice from a friend, or not advice, but basically they were like, oh, I'm just looking at this as like the summer between 9th and 10th grade of high school when you can't drive, all your friends are out of town, it's too hot to do anything. So all you can do is just get on the phone and stay in. And I have reverted to so many different tendencies from high school. I started playing video games again. Final Fantasy VII Remake came out. So I was like, yes, 50 hours of my life, please. And Mortal Kombat 11. So I'm just total reversion mode, back to this guy I was in high school. I also have been dealing with minor writer's block, but again, I'm lucky because I can draw, so that's how I'm paying rent, is through drawings. And I did a bunch of Bear Sailor Scout commissions to help out comic stores and local booksellers and so many different things. I was buying meals for hospital workers and LGBT seniors with the funds that came from those commissions. But yeah, just keeping busy, every day. And then I, watching a bunch of TV like everyone else. So I'm doing okay. In the grand scheme of things, I'm all right. I'm just trying to spread that happiness to other people. I know so many folks are like, whatever. We don't need to repeat the bad stuff, but just I'm doing okay. And y'all are doing okay too? It sounds like we did when we did our pre-show talk.
Yeah, I'm in a weird position where I'm working even more hours right now because I'm managing a team in 3 different time zones. So, it's scaled back a little bit, but there was a good 3-4 weeks there right when we went into hibernation where I was working 10 to 12-hour days. So it's I'm seeing all these people like, oh, I'm binging this. I'm like, God, I just love to have half an hour and, to 27 minutes for, Dark Shadows or something, just to break it up. But no, I've been doing well. I went to my it did have the first COVID death that was somewhat within the orbit, so that was a little, again, it's, I think for everybody at some point it's going to be, less than 6 degrees, and again, I'm in New Jersey, so that it is one of the bigger hot spots still. So, but let's not be talking about down stuff. There's good stuff to talk about. I'm going to throw it over.
Real though. It's
yeah.
Real.
I'm going to throw it over to Bryan first, since Bryan, you brought up Ghosted in LA last week. Why don't you go ahead and start that bit of the conversation?
So I really love this series, and I was talking about this last week. I got stuck on the first issue for whatever weird reason, and I think after the second, I was like full down the roller coaster ride, and I have been so thrilled to see the characters expand, the relationships develop, and just the cast grow in detail and focus. And I'm curious, I don't know that I've heard you talk about this. You probably have, but I will ask it anyway, because I'm sure others haven't. What gave you the notion to like dive into this world, to sort of set it in LA? Kind of sort of makes sense, because I know that's basically where you spend a lot of time. But like, what was the germ? What was the thing that made you like settle on this kind of idea of a ghost sort of ensemble piece with sort of the coming of age themes and all this other cool stuff? Like, how did you settle on that idea?
That's one secret I'll never tell. No, I'm kidding. Well, first things first, I just want to say, if my eye contact ever breaks, or if I look like I'm doing something weird, it's because my dog like hates when I'm on Zoom calls and gets the most feisty. So I'm like always like, buddy, chill the fuck out. So that's all that is. The idea came from, like, right now, Henry, over here, come here. The idea came from, I really love my editor at Boom Studios, Shannon Waters. She is one of the, I'm going to just pick up my dog for a little bit. This is Henry. He just wants to
look at
that. She was one of the co-creators of Lumberjanes, and just like a stupendous human being. And we've done little things together for so long. Like I did some Adventure Time stuff for her. I did some regular show stuff for her. And basically, like, through the years, we've just been like, oh gosh, like, I really want to work with you. And she was like, I really want to work with you. And so one day I'd gone over there and we had to sit down, and she's like, I really want to do something with you. And so we just started, she threw around some like sentences that she had in her head for concepts that she'd really like to see or read. And one of them was just like a supernatural Melrose Place. And I always tell people this who are aspiring creatives, what happened next is when you're onto something, which is I left and I was driving, and I was in my car, and the idea just came to me, and I was like, wait a minute, I've got it all. Like, okay, it's this girl from Missoula, Montana, follows her boyfriend fucking ghosts her, like, and I had to, pull over. I went into a cafe. Luckily I might not have even had my iPad with me. I might have just done this on my phone, which also aspiring creatives, get Google Docs. Like, it's free. You can write your scripts on Google Docs. There's no secret recipe. Anyway, and I just like sat down and was like, Blah! Like, and in 45 minutes wrote down a version of what it would be. And we kind of went back and forth on a few details. But what was always there was just this it was a story about this young girl, Daphne, who basically, meets kind of these left behind souls of Los Angeles. And I'm from here, so it was a way for me to kind of fall in love with the city in different ways, and a chance for me to kind of just take a look around. I've always lived in apartment complexes, so it was sort of my love letter to like every neighbor I've had, good or bad. And that's sort of where it went. And thank you for saying all the nice stuff about sort of the character work, because that was my personal goal. I was watching a lot of Steven Universe at the time, and I was so taken by how well Rebecca Sugar and everyone on that show, they they'll plant things that don't blossom, like for episodes, if not seasons. And I really wanted to do something like that because I knew I had 12 issues. So I just thought, okay, like I have complete control of this. Let's put something here that lands so many issues later. And the only downside of that was you get there's a lot more urgency when you think you're about to be canceled. So I feel like that first trade is quite calm. And like you said, you're like, I stalled out on issue 1 because there's just sort of like this, yeah, it's there. And then once I realized, I'm like, I've only got 12 bullets, then I really just.
Well, I mean, basically what I was saying last week is the second issue is where you really get that second half of the hook. The first episode is very rich and interesting, and it sets the premise up. But really, it's that those characters that all come into the hotel, and you learn more about each personality, and then obviously the relationship with her ex develops, and things like that are where you really start to get momentum, and that's when I certainly was grabbed. I mean, I've just finished literally today because I've been slacking. I read the trade for last week, and I read through issue 9, which I think is all that's out. At least on Comixology, that's all that I've seen.
Yes. Yes. I might have issue 10, but you don't.
So 9 really ramps up the stakes. I'm not going to spoil anything for people who are, don't want to be spoiled, but you really start to get, I think, into some real heavier stuff in involving the roommate potentially, and this mystery with the door and stuff like that. Like that is really a great, it's really propelling the story into something I think could be really interesting. So do you only have the 12 still, or do you think, or are things kind of like now, who knows if it's going to keep going?
There's like no certainty right now because of coronavirus. The only way Boom will know how well the book performs is once it hits the book market. And it hit the book market during coronavirus, which is why I've just been campaigning so hard to have people do reviews on Amazon and Goodreads and, whatnot. And although I will say, I might be jinxing myself, but this is going to be the most producible show after coronavirus, because think about it, closed set, it just takes place on one set because the ghosts can't leave Rycroft Manor. Then they're ghosts, so the actors are working against green screen, on a green screen, so they're not even in contact with each other. So really, this is going to be super this is going to be the number one thing to shoot when this is all done, is very clean, concise, limiting contact, no huge crowd scenes.
It's going to be like George Lucas up in there, all green screen. Everybody just films their thing separately and adds together. No, I actually was saying, I think last week too, it's very, I don't think that was your intent to make it a potential property for development, but oh my God, it screams it. It really did. There's so much there. I mean, like you said, the inspiration or the elevator pitch of a Melrose Place with ghosts, that's what people want to hear, I think, when they want to develop projects in that industry. So, I'm
you
excited.
Saw some of this shit that was at the CW up fronts for the fall, so maybe you could still get in there.
Oh my gosh.
What's funny too is when one of the most important things for me was I'm a big CW fan. Well, I'm more of a WB fan, but CW by proxy. Yeah. And I just love teen ensemble shows. And I remember when it was really final, we're gonna do ghosts, and I was like, but how do ghosts have sex? How do you have love triangles with ghosts? I figured it out. Issue 10 is pretty sexy, so.
Oh my God. So we haven't talked about the art because Siobhan Keenan, I had not been familiar with her work, and it's delightful, and it reminds me of Erica Henderson a little bit. It's got I don't want to say Boom has a house style because it certainly doesn't, but it definitely has a not even Lumberjanes, but other books that they have that kind of reminded me of the vibrancy and the youthful energy of her art. It's really perfect. Her cartooning is great. I also noticed that you're doing, I believe, the backup, not backup stories,
but flashbacks.
Flashbacks. Yeah, I thought that was you, and then it said with your name, and I was like, And by the way, I mean, having, obviously knowing your stuff for a long time now, you have become like, I don't know that you always were amazing, but I think you were, but like your style has like demonstrably gotten like so good. And those backup scenes look fantastic. And even though they look different from the main story, obviously they still they look really like perfect for those periods that they're set in. So I'm glad you're getting to draw more in your books. That's I always love that.
Thank you. That was literally a pragmatic reason, was just like, 12 issues for someone who, like, Siobhan was in school, like, working on her thesis when this started. I was like, you're gonna be busy. Like, you may be prolific, but you're gonna be busy. So I was just like, I'll draw flashback sequences to make your overall page count and responsibilities reduced. So thank you for saying that, because it was just, it was just simply out of like, all right, how do I make my artist's life a little bit easier and get the best work out of her, for 12 months straight. And yeah, she's super great. And her colorist, or our colorist, Kathy Lay, they're friends from school, and she's also an amazing illustrator. I'm like, why are you coloring comics? You're so good. And then our letter, it's just like a cool, like, we just like all like each other, and like our letterer DC Hopkins is just the nicest guy, and it's just a cool book. And yeah, so I hope there's more. So if anyone's listening to this, please order it on things and review it on things and hashtag it on things, like, that
all
stuff really counts.
All of the things.
I'm so eloquent.
Well, what was interesting too, and speaking of your art, and I don't know, because I don't have the trade. I've gotten the individual floppy issues. I like the little back matter that you have in every issue, where it's almost like a, here's a list of places that I really like to write. Here's a list of places that are really good for coffee. Like, it's just really, it's like a quick introduction to the world outside of, Daphne's perception. Like, Daphne's kind of, she's just starting out in LA. She spends all of her time in a house full of ghosts. Here's a whole bunch of other stuff, where you can actually experience the city a little bit more, and experience, what everything has to offer from Sina's perspective. And it's just, it's kind of neat to see, something that's a little bit more reaching out to people who maybe aren't familiar with LA, maybe who are thinking about coming to LA or new to LA. Like, hey, here's some fun little places for you as well, that we might mention in the book, but here's some stuff that I like to see and do and eat at.
Well, those are definitely not in the collected editions, because that is something I wanted to make special for people who buy single issues, because again, I'm a comic guy, so like, I just wanted to reward people who go and buy floppy comics at the comic store or digitally on Comixology. So yeah, thank you. Because like, they put it in the first draft of the collected edition, and I was like, I'm gonna be so dramatic. I was like, no. They were like, well, okay, like, cool, sketchbook section, fine. So I'm glad you like those, and I like that also you appreciate the perspective, because I only in thinking outside of my own head, then I'm like, oh yeah, it might be kind of weird that I recommended what cemeteries to visit. But I too am strange and unusual.
No, I love those pieces, because I've been to LA like once, maybe twice, like a layover, and like, this is great material. Now, of course, we need to know. Hopefully, they're still open when I make it out back there. But there's some great recommendations. One more thing I thought of, and Steve, you reminded me of this. The tone of the voice of the characters. It is so refreshing to see a writer in comics, and even though it's changing, it's definitely getting better, who writes from an organic place of technology and social media, like actually know what they're talking about and aren't just like, I'm not even give a bad example, because there are plenty out there, but and I'm a 43-year-old man. I am not the person who would ever know all of the things. If my boyfriend didn't show me TikToks all the time, I'd have no idea about such things. But you capture obviously that youthful voice, and even like characters like Aggie. Is it Aggie? Aggie? What's her? How do you say her name?
Aggie.
Okay, Aggie. Okay. Having those different periods represented, I feel like has been really fun. I'm guessing to write different voices from different periods and different backgrounds. What did you put into that as far as just selecting the ensemble, figuring out what periods you want, and how much were you influenced by Ryan Murphy's American Horror? No, I'm just kidding. I had like in
American
my head
Horror Story.
Well, yeah, the hotel, was it called Hotel?
I saw a few episodes of that because it was really intense.
It was.
Like I just saw enough to be like, okay, that's Lady Gaga. All right, cool. I gotta
go. Yeah, it's very different. Like, don't give anybody the wrong impression.
No. This is not an intense book.
There's also the scene where they all kind of have a blood orgy, and then
there was the ink. Okay, so there's ink. It's not blood, but it's ink, right?
There are possessions. There are rituals that do require bloodletting. But no, my book's very whimsical. No, it's more Steven Universe fans than American Horror Story fans. So okay, short answer, no, was not thinking about American Horror Story when I made this. And then I think just like in terms of picking the characters, I just went back to like, people I've seen with stories I haven't necessarily heard. And I think what was really fun was then picking which decades different characters came from, like I think Aggie's kind of like the one that I had a lot of fun sinking my teeth into and researching, because she died in the late 1930s, and she was, divorced. And so it was great to kind of like do research as to, and look into what happened to a woman when she got divorced back then, and kind of try and like filter just a little bit of truth to that. And then I just thought, I went back and forth between like if Shirley should have died in the 80s or 90s. Shirley is like this really cool black chick in the book, and she's a mother. She has 2 kids, single parent, and I just like super leaned into just my mom. I made her my mom kind of in a lot of ways, but then also, tried to filter experiences and stories that I had from like, Black lady friends, or their mothers. Like, I have friends from grade school who, I'm still in touch with them and their moms and stuff. So I just thought it'd be really fun to kind of speak to perspectives that hadn't been shown, or even just play into the fact that like people are still dealing with the same things over and over again. And then also getting to find out weird shit about Los Angeles that doesn't matter, but I would still sneak it in anyway. Like, this isn't important, but like Century City, like when it was founded and when it was developed, that's it's where all the business meetings happen. There's a big mall there, but so I just had some throwaway line about how much traffic there was because of the development, in this character Maurice's flashback. So yeah, that's kind of where all that came from. And then I always knew from the beginning that there would be this like tragic, modern, sort of supernova character. And originally, because I just, again, back to like promoting the book, I'm doing these like rewards I unlock based on how many reviews there are on the Amazon page. And at 25 reviews, I was like, all right, I will upload the original series pitch that like, got this through the door. Because I know that that's important for people to learn from. And I was like going over it and I was like, wait, right. Like Zola was an actress before. But now she is, I'll spoil this because she doesn't show up in the first book, but she's always like hinted at in the back, like even in the first page of the first issue, she's there on that poster. But she's this like rock star girl who you find out accidentally committed suicide. And I knew that I just kind of wanted to talk about what sort of just different layers of depression and what that looks like for different people who may have everything or may compartmentalize in a way that we're not used to. So that was there from the get-go, and I just thought it would be great to have that energy paired against this like manic energy that's Daphne, and someone so earnest and then someone so jaded finding each other and kind of teaching each other new lessons was like, it was just like begging readers, like, get to the part where these two girls meet, because then everything gets so fucking good. But yeah, I don't know. That's sort of where that came from. It was just trying to bring people around me to life, or coming up with stories about like my neighbors, like just like looking at them and being like, what goes on when you close that door? Oops, sorry, that was loud.
I just really love the personalities. I think are like you said, you've really found a way to bring realistic people into this, but in a way where it's not overly dramatic, in like a very dark way. Even though there are some dark themes, obviously, and some some very serious themes that are talked about between the characters, but you also have this general feeling where things are going to be okay. Like I like, it's hard to read, or rare to read, a lot of comic stories nowadays where you have a general feeling of things are not going to be absolutely horrible for the entire time or for everybody. Things are going to be okay at some point. And I like this kind of uplifting style that you've brought to the series. Speaking of voices and characters, and I'm going to jump over whole publishers here as well to DC, because recently, and I know Bill was a huge fan of this, as was I, because I'm a huge Shazam fan. In the recent massive crossover sort of event of Year of the Villain and the Infected specifically, you got to write King Shazam.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, Billy Batson has always been, to me, a little bit too goody two shoes and too perky, and like, I don't know many 14 or 15-year-olds that don't just throw out the F word like every other sentence just to be cool. But then King Shazam does. So like, once he's got that little switch turned off, here's the asshole Billy that I've been wondering where this one actually exists. Because like, of course, there's always this sort of like, oh, well, Billy was always just kind of a jerk, but now he's the orphan with the heart of gold who's also like, this really glorious champion with all these powers and stuff. But what if he was just kind of stayed an asshole? That's kind of what King Shazam was. And I have to say, like, reading the way that he interacted and reading how you sort of brought this really awful version of Shazam to life, made me like think of, holy shit, this is like every high school bully action or just way of speaking, like in this one character, and it's just perfectly brought to life. I'm like, wow, this really works for making me hate this character, although I loved how this character was hateful. So, but how was it writing something so fun and I don't want to say light, but it's not, uplifting and fun and less over at Boom with Ghosted, and then having to write this sort of like horrible character that's doing really terrible and like violent things, and doing it joyfully. How was that jumping between?
Oh, it was fine. we all have wickedness within us, but so I will tell you my secret to writing him, because it's funny and it's raunchy and it's perfect for us. The way I got to his voice was like, years ago I had this boyfriend and we were living together and we were like so stoned at the time, and I was like, hey, like, do you want to play a sex game? And he was like, what? And I was like, let's play Brothers. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, we're brothers. And so he was like, okay. And so I was like, all right. And then I left the living room and I came back and I stormed in and I slammed the door and I was like, oh, mom's such a bitch grounding us. What the fuck? We can't play video games? And I was like, because like I was like, let's be actual 13-year-old boys going through puberty. Like that's my favorite thing is like I don't ever want to do the like fantasy. Like, no, let's deep role play. Like we both have pimples, we both have acne, like we both smell awful. Like, let's do that. And he couldn't keep a straight face. I was like, what are we gonna do together? And I basically wrote Billy that frame of mind of that kid, that obnoxious 13-year-old that you never want to fuck. Because he's such a hormonal, like ugly piece of shit. So that was, yeah. And then the real challenge was just like, okay, like how do we do this? Like how do we let the reader know that shit's real while still honoring like standards and practices? And I think, you know, that was what was great, was having him fight gods, because, you know, it spoke so much to the kind of resentment he would have as a character whose id is just, you know, bursting out with resentment. But then also it was nice because, like, you know, he could beat the shit out of them, beat the tar out of them, but like it would never have to get like grotesque. Which if he was doing that to humans, it would be like gross. It would just be like, you know, puddles of ooze like, you know, body goo everywhere. So
spines and like, you know, legs just splayed everywhere.
Yeah, this isn't like a Dark Horse era alien book, you know.
Although that would be an interesting twist. No,
Black Label.
I actually no, I totally got that, like that hormonal 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid. That's definitely, like, no matter how much I like to think I'm a pretty easy to get along with person, and in public I'm like that. I remember when I was a 13-year-old kid, like around my family, I was an asshole. Everything was kind of like that. We're just sort of like, I don't want to do anything. Like, you can't make me do anything.
I don't believe this ever was Steve. I don't ever believe. No.
You have to. That's the thing. You have to talk to
balloon.
No, we've seen the pictures with the blue hair, so maybe.
No. It was funny. Like the older I got, like the better I was. But like
we're all like a fine wine. It's okay.
Yeah, like a fine wine. Yeah.
I don't know. Some of us turn into Manischewitz.
I'm a nice sparkling grape, okay? Like just a sparkling grape.
You're a basic Zinfandel sometimes. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, Steve kind of stole my thunder in relation to expecting the DC guy to do the Shazam question. But I'll take one of his franchises to pull it from his hands there. And what was it like working in the Power Rangers world?
Really great, actually. Yeah. It was, I mean, I was co-writing Go-Go Power Rangers with Ryan Parrott, who is like currently the comic book franchise architect, or, you know, whatever, the Grand Poobah. And what was nice was like the hard stuff of getting Hasbro, you know, to agree to things was already done. So basically, you know, we were talking to each other at the outline stage of the comic books, and it was really nice to, you know, not worry about like, oh, are they going to say yes or no to this, and just get to do the thing and get to really be in all of these characters' heads. And the best was that our editor Daphne Plebin is like such an like super amazing thinker, but on top of all that, she's an emotional thinker. So we really got to psychologize these kids down to bulk and skull, and it was just so much fun to like put words in their mouths and write them, but write them with a little bit of maturity, instead of, because I was like rewatching the show, being like, all right, like I gotta get their voices down, and then you watch it and you're like, but their voices are written for 7 to 10-year-olds to vibe with, not 7 to 38-year-olds. So that was great to kind of take these moments we knew and then shape them with a grown-up lens, and then also do some really cool shit, like come up with new monsters. And we got to basically depict what it looked like when Tommy turned into the White Ranger. And for all intents and purposes, like, this is canon. Like, Hasbro has to approve it, so it's canon-ish, because Go-Go takes those early eras, and they have cell phones, like they can text message. It's not the 90s. But still kind of look at this stuff and say, like, what would that have looked like? What would that have been? What would Saba have been like at this point? Or, what would just these character interactions be outside of, like, yeah, everything's awesome, because that's the show's core tenet, is like they're all here for each other, they're all a team. And then to just be like, yeah, but what if they're actually conflicted teenagers dealing with a whole bunch of stuff? And so that was cool. And I learned to be a much better comic book writer in that process. Ryan is really good at action and storytelling, and sort of knowing when to put out which beats in a story. So that was really like, I learned so many things in that, and that was cool. But yeah, it was a good time, and I'm very curious to see how people feel about the last 2 issues. And then they got, like, the cool stuff too is, like, for people who aren't reading this book, where I got to come in, the 3 original cast members, Jason, Zach, and Trini, left the TV show because of contractual reasons. But for us, I don't know if it was Ryan or Daphne or the original guy writing it, Kyle. Hey, I don't know who said this, but it's like, oh, well, we took those 3, and instead of them going to, like, some dumb, conference in Switzerland, they're actually, like, secret Power Rangers in space. And they have to lie to all their friends. And so that's kind of what we're mapping, is like Tommy becoming the White Ranger and these kids going off on their clandestine space mission. And that was just so much fun, to, like, take this thing that really sucked when you were a kid, this transition, and turn it into something cool and with new toys.
Yeah. Something I also wanted to bring up there, because you've mentioned the editor that you've worked with on this book and also on Ghosted in LA, and you have experience yourself as an editor from your time with Skybound. How important is the editor in setting the tone for how, not just how the project unfurls, but how enthusiastic you remain on it?
It's case by case. It depends on the project. I mean, I think, it just depends on the project, really. Like, obviously, when it's a creator-owned book and it's a passion project, you want that person to be as passionate as you are. When you're dealing with licensing and licensors, you want to be protected as much as possible. Like, I wrote a Haunted Mansion graphic novel that will most definitely be coming out this August. I can confirm. It's all done. It's at the printer. It's coming out in August. For real. Coronavirus isn't affecting it. And with that, it's good to have someone who's going to say, like, that's not going to work for Disney, or I talked to Disney and XYZ LMNOP. Editors serve so many different purposes and roles. They're project managers, then they're also, like, therapists. But each one's different. Like, when I did Jughead's Time Police at Archie, it was just the notes were kind of like, you do you, like, do you best, and then we're gonna say, like, do you in this direction or do you in that direction, but we're not gonna go in and be like, I don't know how I feel about this. Let's page by page breakdown. Whereas, some editors are like, okay, let's get into the nitty gritty. And I do think then, you know, if you're working on something personal, you do want to find someone who aligns with you. Like, there's an editor where everything I've pitched her, she's been like, I like it, but I'd like it if it was this. And every time she said that, I'm like, well, that's not the thing I want to give you. And that doesn't make her wrong. That doesn't make me right. That just makes our perspectives different. And if, you know, we're to work to, like, if we work together with like that core disagreement, then it's just going to be acrimonious the whole way through. And I think that's kind of, you know, that's also your role as an editor, is to sort of figure out. It's like that line in Sex and the City where it's like, and then sometimes, like, there are instances where a girl should just shut the fuck up. Be like, you know, it's like, as an editor, you're like, oh, maybe I don't need to have an opinion on everything. All right, it's dinner time here, so I'm like eating beef jerky.
Totally works. Well, that is a pretty good point about editors and you know, editing styles. I mean, it does make perfect sense if you're doing something that's a creator-owned project that you want to have that support, but also at the same time, do you want to have somebody who's going to be very honest and you know, very detailed in ways that they disagree with you, but maybe they disagree with you in the same direction, that they're as passionate about your project as you are, but they want to make sure that you're staying on track, that you're, you know, not compromising your own vision too much. Like, how that's, as an editor, like, how difficult is that a line to walk where you want to make sure that the person that you're working with can still fulfill what they want to do, but doesn't do it in a way that is bad, that doesn't work for the story.
I think it just depends on who has the most power, you know. So when I was a comic editor, I worked at Skybound, which is Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman's imprint at Image Comics. So obviously, any book he wrote, he's like, I don't want to go through this with you. Like, these are the scripts. Get the artist to turn them in on time and find my typos. But then when we'd bring in new projects like Witch Doctor or Ghost, I might need to turn a light on because it's starting to get dark in here. Well, that doesn't help, but whatever. I guess it kind of helps. Now it's like balance, whatever. But you know, then it would be like we'd get feedback on outlines from, you know, Robert and his business partner. And it's like, okay, how do you communicate your thoughts? How do you communicate your boss's thoughts to the creator? And at the end of the day, you just have to have like a very good reason when you're going again, when you're telling someone like, your baby's got a weird nose. We got to give your baby a nose job. But here's why.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking too. It's like, yeah, that's a perfect metaphor.
Like,
still your baby,
be a better
but there's
singer.
something kind of weird with it. So,
or yeah, like, what is it? The fontanelle? Like, you know, we just gotta that fontanelle so the overall shape is nice later.
Oh, that's good.
I know I can fix this. Hold on, I got an idea.
Ooh. Oh, what?
Oh,
No, I'm back.
Oh.
I'm back.
Thought you were going a full Caleb there. We're like, what?
Yeah.
No. I was just upping my screen brightness so that way, like, there's.
You look fantastic, my dear.
it's like a glow. It's a glow from behind.
I do like the backlight. It's always a good look.
Yeah.
Until it washes you out completely, then it's not so good.
I love that it's like orange behind me, purple in front of me. I look like a Hildebrandt Brothers painting. Like, you remember those?
Wow.
A dragon off in the corner, maybe, but like a really
Yeah.
skinny one. Lots of silver.
Yeah.
I think they used to give out like those free stickers or book plates or something if you joined the sci-fi book club in the 80s or 90s.
Did. Oh my god, I have one somewhere, I think.
And the only reason I'm thinking about that is because I found them the other day.
Oh no.
Because I also joined and they're right here. So let's see.
Of course you still have them.
Yes, I still have
Oh,
them.
look at that. So awesome. Oh my
It
god.
was
so accurate.
Golden Wings by Boris Vallejo. Yeah.
Oh, Vallejo. Love it.
So I was gonna save this. I was gonna save this for my woof, but I will certainly reuse it later. But tell us about the Pride postcards project that you're helping out with. I saw I mean, I think it's done, right? Is it still a comp? I mean, I think it looks pretty finished.
I'm still tweaking it every day. Yeah. So, does everyone here know Zan Christensen?
Oh God, honey.
Yep.
We love Zan.
We're not talking about Baltimore.
No, we love him. He is absolutely awesome.
So yeah, he hit me up and asked if I would be a part of it, and I don't know, it just was one of those like fuck yeah moments. Like, yeah, of course I'm gonna do this. And then it came down to the thing of like, well, what's gonna be like, what would look cool, what would be something everyone would want, what would be something that speaks to my strengths, what's a good challenge. And I just thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to take like an old, like what we would perceive as like an old timey, like, you know, I don't know how to pronounce it, daguerreotype, you know, like those old family portraits, and then make it a very modern representation, all-encompassing glimpse into kind of what the rainbow means nowadays, what the LGBTQIA plus, you know, what that looks like. And you know, it does represent kink now. It does represent youth. It does represent age. It does represent ableism. And for a long time, I would ponder about like, wait, when did being a gay man mean, you know, like I had to then look out for, you know, like asexual girls or something. And it wasn't with any judgment or resentment. It was just like, when did this happen? And then I was like, it doesn't matter. It's happened. It's here. And we have to look out for each other. And I think, you know, I'm so fascinated or drawn to the idea of people, of us all really embracing that, you know, like some queer comic conventions or queer conventions, you can see the segregation. And then others like FlameCon, you are just in this like weird pansexual Janelle Monáe music video, and it is fine. It is great. We are dancing. We are here. I don't even know what gender you are, but like, you are beautiful. You are a unicorn. You're not even a human. And so anyway, I don't think I all that in the drawing, but I just wanted to sort of factor in all these little things and have all of that in there, and have, you know, gender expression and kink expression, and you know, different bodies, different ages. So I, you know, it's just a cute thing, and I threw myself in there, and because that's what I do. And so I updated it because yeah, I posted the like pencils when I was trying to get people to go back the Kickstarter, and then when I posted the colors, there's like oh, and now there's an Asian girl. And she definitely looks like Mariko Tamaki, because she definitely is based off Mariko Tamaki, because I love Mariko Tamaki. And she's one of the best comic writers out there.
She's doing so great.
Everything she's done.
It's really cool. And I'll
talk about my wolf actually.
Oh, see, we're all just spoiling ourselves. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's
just
fine.
go.
Bill's like, how am I gonna edit this shit?
I got a fucking Blue Falcon figure. That was my name.
So it is important for anyone watching this now live or on YouTube. This is recording us on May 14th. That Kickstarter has got 4 more days. It was a tight turnaround. So if you have not gone out there and supported it did make its minimum, but I think for every additional 1,000 or something, they're adding new creators to contribute. So I mean, they'll
add a new artist.
Yeah. So I mean, I just put a link on our Comic Bears Facebook page, and then I reshared it. So yeah, please, if anyone's interested in some way, they can reach out across the country or world even and send postcards of awesomeness as part of this virtual Pride. It's a great project. I'm really excited that Zan and Joey and whoever else and you and everyone else involved did this. It's really cool. So yeah, we should talk about comics. I mean, we talk about comics.
Yeah,
but...
it's rad.
So I don't know, Sina, I didn't tell you this part, but basically we've been like kind of, every week we kind of pick some random thing off of our back list of books or things we've had and or read and want to talk about. So I think we're going to do that.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, Sina, we'll let you go. I mean, Bill, I don't know. I don't want to take this. Do you want to let him go last and give him time, or?
There's the courtesy to the guests, but there's also the courtesy to allow the guests to go last as well.
So if you have anything, think about it.
Yeah.
I can go super first.
Oh, awesome.
I am so adopting super first. All right, here
super
we go.
first.
I'll be
Super
right
first.
back though. Maybe how about I'll go super second so I can go
Perfect. That's not
Sure.
a problem. I can jump right in here if you want.
Okay.
So I'd had this on my Comixology for a while, and I don't remember when I bought it. And that's one of those things I am bad about Comixology. I'll go on and just buy shit, and then I forget that I bought it because I don't always read it all right away. And I go back later. I'm like, oh, cool. What do I have here?
Sometimes I've been where, that sounds really cool, and then I look at, that's happened a couple times.
100% first world problem. But this is especially interesting because it is based in Seattle, and I forgot that. It's called Lust. It is the kinky online personal ads illustrated by Ellen Forney. Yes, collected from the infamous and fantastic, by the way, Seattle independent paper, The Stranger, which if you are a fan of The Stranger or you're in Seattle and you never heard of it, they are struggling as everyone else in print media right now, but their website is still amazing and their print is even better, and they could use your support. But these personal ads were posted over the course of like a decade. And Ellen, who's done some amazing autobiographical comics as well, if you want to check her stuff out, she's got some really cool, really good stuff. Cartoonist, does everything. She did this like adaptation of these personal ads as little one-shot pictures. It actually reminds me of Derek Marks, who I think we interviewed on here a while back. He did these for like 120 minutes and Alternative Nation interviews.
Yeah, he was at our we interviewed him at the live show.
Yes, that's what it was in New York.
That's what it was.
Okay. So, same idea, kind of like taking existing material and just, adapting it into the comics medium. And these personals are so awesome because this is not a new book. This came out like 2008. So this has been out for a while. But seeing all of the variety of kink and I don't even know if it's kink or just really specific interests, which I think is kind of kink, but whatever. Portrayed in funny, but not like they're not laughing at the kink. They're really like Ellen is doing this cool thing where she's uplifting the little here's what I'm looking for into something that's really art. And everyone's different. Everyone's got a different style. Some of them are pastiches and sort of references. Some are just cool little designs. This one is, I'll put it up on the camera. These don't always come out very well, but it's, watch me undress. Somebody's just interested in having somebody kind of watch them do that. There was one, I lost it here, but it's basically like it's a Ren Fair couple or a Ren Fair person, and they want to have sex in the woods, but they wrote it in like old timey kind of speak in that era. Like just some amazing, amazing stuff. So if you are interested in such things, like you just kind of think, sex is cool, and the more variety, the more interesting, like we talked about earlier with Brother Play, which is totally a new thing to me. I don't think I've ever done that, but it's, it sounds like it could be kind of fun.
It's gotta be realistic though.
Well, no, you got to immerse yourself. You can't be like dilettante, like I'm just playing this, but anyway, so there's some great stuff in here. It is on Comixology. It is a long, like she did this for a long time. I think it was like every week or so at least. So hundreds of these one page. And she also goes back and does little interviews with some of the people too, which is kind of cool. So, it's not just, this one's ridiculous. Again, these don't come out well, but like Brad Pitt, yeah, that's not going to come out at all. But like this illustration of Brad Pitt tied up with a thong on his face. And in the text is, my fantasy is to tie up Brad Pitt, rip off his little lace panties, and do him in the ass. F seeks good girls, bad girls, boy girls, T-girls by men for hot, nasty sex. So, like, you know, cool. That's so specific. But I mean, you know, she's casting a wide net too. But, you know, anyway, so much fun. It's sequential storytelling in single panel, one and done single panels. But there is still a story there, and it's everyone is so special. So it's called Lust. Fantagraphics put it out, and it is fantastic.
So, Bryan, since you are in Seattle, the Stranger actually still exists as a print magazine?
In fact, when we were just moving here in February, before the dark times where we couldn't leave our houses, Brandon and I went out to Capitol Hill, which is, you know, the major, you know, gay area. And there was the Stranger's like guide to Seattle. Like for anyone who just moved to Seattle, here's your guide. And we're just like, what is this? This is some freaking weird omen. And it was fantastic. So yeah, the Stranger is absolutely still on print, still out in the streets. I mean, I haven't seen it in the last 2 months because I haven't been out in the streets, but they've been soliciting donations. I think I donated to them. Just because their content, like I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and we had the weekly, and I think there was another. Well, and then Watermark, which is the queer publication.
Right.
Having
and
those
then
papers,
Miami was City Times, or was that?
I never
something like that.
in West Palm. I didn't really. I was so young. Anyway, but those kind of papers are so important. And even if they just transition to digital, that's fine. But like having that thing you hold in your hand when you're sitting at a restaurant waiting for your food and you don't want to talk to your significant no. But whatever the reason, like they're just so special and they're so unique to each city. But like the Stranger stuff, anyone would appreciate it. It's got some just amazing indie content. I love that paper. So
it just one hell of a heritage at this point, because it's interesting because it kind of was too late for grunge. I think it started around 91, and in some ways that made it more indie because it wasn't catering to something that was already in motion in the city. And you know, you think of, in terms of legacy, some of the really outstanding writers got their starts. I mean, immediately I think of Sarah Vowell and Sherman Alexie.
Dan Savage.
And Dan
Savage, yeah,
absolutely.
that's true. Yeah,
paper for years. I think he's been publishing his column continuously since maybe not the first edition or the first year of The Stranger, but certainly for at least
long time,
25 years.
Yeah.
So as for like going back to Lust, I remember driving back up to college from Connecticut. And we would stop, my roommate and I would stop at this like little out of the way place in Vermont. And for some reason, you know, amongst all the free like real estate newspapers and like the generic local papers, they had a collection of just personal ads. So it was like this little paper book that you could buy.
I remember, yeah.
Came out weekly, and it was just personal ads. And so you had like, you had the basic ones in the front, and then you had like the really cool misconnections that were like these little romance films, you know, played out in part. But they would have like the really crazy kinky section. And I remember there was like this really desperate guy, and every time we got like a new copy, like there would be another ad clearly from the same person who was looking for the most specific. We're talking like he was clearly looking for one person, that there is no other person like this in the world, who was a larger woman, very hairy, possibly with chest hair, definitely with a unibrow, and had a birthmark in their eye. And that was his kink. Like that was specifically, he's like, I'm looking for this because this is the only thing that can get me off. And I'm like, that's very specific. You are looking for
some nasty babysitter from his nasty ass past.
Yes. He had a babysitter. Her name was like
store who touched him.
She fed him turnips, and it was a whole thing.
It was, yes. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I would love to.
Does anybody remember Bear Magazine? I know Bill probably does. I don't know, Steve and Sina, if you guys.
I have found some Bear magazines that were gifted.
I remember Bear. I was a little more partial to Drummer, but Yeah, I remember.
If you have had a chance to thumb through any of those, and I did back when they came out in the 90s, but the Pony here in Seattle had them out for one night, like just random issues from whenever. And Brandon and I are sitting there reading it, and they have this personal section at the back. And it was like pre-Growler, pre-Adam for Adam, pre-Bear 411, pre all of that. And it was so amazing for those exact things. People were looking for very specific. I want someone to build a log cabin with me in the woods. I'm not even making it up. That was one of them. It was crazy. It was fantastic. Pictures, everything.
I need to go back and because I do have some issues. Maybe I guess all the pages are stuck together, but I'll flip through them and see if I can find some personal.
There's gold. There's short stories. There's erotica. There's all articles. I mean, there's some really amazing material. I think I looked. No one's put them up online as like a indexable, searchable thing. But oh my god, the content is so great. Oh. Anyway, that's mine. Lust by Fantagraphics, Ellen Fornes.
Hot. My super second is not as good. It's not as corny. It's like if you want a real downer. I did a WonderCon digital panel with this guy AJ Dungo. The book is it Reading the Right Way or is it?
No, it's the right way.
It's good.
It's called In Waves, and I gotta say, like, it has the most downer like log line you could ever ask for. Like, it's about the history of surfing and this guy's dead girlfriend, aka Straits. But there's something about this book that's just so good. It's so good. It's this guy's first graphic novel. He was just, I think he's a freelance graphic designer by trade, and then got No Brow Press to pick up this book, and it's just a really great. It's a really great. I don't know. It's a great way of commemorating someone else's life, and I grabbed it because the panel moderator, she sang the book's praises and I wanted to support. And then I kind of didn't touch it for like a couple of days because I was like, I don't want to read this. We're in the middle of some fucking bullshit right now. Like, I can't. And oddly, it was really helpful. It was, I had 2 good cries reading this thing. And he's just such a sweet human being too. I mean, based off, a few interactions in social media, but it's a great book. It's a really, really great book. It's also like, it's like 375 pages and the book is only $18.95. And it's just a beautiful read and it's really pretty to look at. The color palette's amazing. And it's just nice to be affected by a reading experience. I don't cry when I read much. So the fact that it did it to me twice, it's like, that's what's going to be in my ad is like, get me to cry from reading.
It has to be twice. If it's once, forget it.
So
that's my specific take.
So Sina, was this one of the new WonderCon panels that they're putting up online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's a memoir panel that I don't know when these things are going to come out, but they'll tell me, right?
Okay, yeah, because the first one I saw was the Brian Bendis and Gene Wang. I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce it on DC Daily talking about Superman for an hour, which is really
mind-numbing or good?
Really wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So, but it looks like they are starting to leak out.
I think within the next 2 weeks they'll all be out.
Okay.
But we did this one a few weeks ago.
Cool.
Okay. Steve.
Well, I think she's already been brought up, but Mariko Tamaki. I read Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me because I am a 16-year-old girl. And it is an absolute joy of a book. It's told very personally, obviously from the character's main the main character's perspective. She essentially is narrating her actions, her life, and her relationship with the Laura Dean character, so rightly named because she kind of looks a little bit like James Dean and is very aloof and standoffish and way too cool. But she's essentially writing to a love and sex advice columnist throughout the whole book. And as different things happen, throughout her interactions and her relationship, on again, off again relationship with Laura Dean, sometimes the subject matter of the emails that she writes changes. So at first she's like, "Oh, I don't know why I torture myself so much. Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me, or I saw her cheating on me, and all these things." But then they get back together, and all of a sudden it changes to like, well, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm just not open to a polyamorous relationship, and she clearly likes to play around. So maybe it's me. And meanwhile, while she spends so much time thinking about herself and thinking about her relationship to this clearly disinterested, self-obsessed woman or a fellow high school student who just really doesn't really care about her, just cares about the fact that she's so into her, that she loses track of her friends, who are the real, the real center of her life. And one friend in particular who's going through a very tragic time, off camera or off panel, so to speak here. And it's because of her disinterest that things kind of escalate with that other friend. So I think this is it's a great story. It has a wonderful arc, and the art is gorgeous. The art, of course, is by Rosemary Valera O'Connell. The way she looks at coloring and very strategic use of color, and the only color is pink, is absolutely gorgeous. She just makes interesting choices to augment the backgrounds and augment different characters at certain times. But it's a beautiful read. It's not very long. Again, it's sort of more written for the YA market, but it's an excellent story. The art is wonderful, and didn't make me cry, but made me just do this the whole time, because I kind of felt just like several of the characters. So, but excellent. It's Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Marco Tamaki and Rosemary Valera O'Connell.
And who publishes that?
First Second.
First Second, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And it has actually won, this one has, it's received the Prince Award for Excellence in Young Adult Literature by the American Library Association. So pretty cool. I guess this came out in 2019.
Okay. Well, for my choice, we're going to be 3 for 3 for books that make you cry. But this one's a little more unexpected. I don't know why it took me 2 years to read this series, but it did. Been going through the Black Hammer universe, and the book I want to talk about is Dr. Star and the Kingdom of Lost Tomorrows, which 4 issues long, again, single issue reader usually. This basically is the Starman of that particular universe, so much so that the name of the Dr. Star in question is actually named Jimmy Robinson. It doesn't leave too much to the imagination there. And basically it tells the story of what if Ted Knight was a really shitty father. And, again, with the backdrop of Black Hammer, a couple weeks ago I said it's like Astro City on mescaline. This is like Starman on Molly. It's a story of Dr. Star's relationship with his wife and his son, and the turns that takes because of the vocation that he's chosen to be a member of the Liberty Squadron and one of the superheroes of the Spiral City world. And the last, I say 6 pages, if you don't have tissues at the ready, get them, because I don't think it crosses the line into redemption, but it does cross the line into understanding that you made mistakes. And I think everybody can relate to that. Not necessarily on the same level, but I think that is a constant in most people's lives, that at some point they know they took a wrong turn, particularly with a family member in some ways. So It's out, and I just read that they have to rename him Dr. Andromeda for the second edition of the trade.
We don't necessarily know why. I think that was something that was revealed in a special Black Hammer universe issue.
Oh, okay. I still have the Quantum Age, and I still have the Justice League crossover to get through. So
they haven't revealed why.
I thought it was illegal. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so was that? Okay. Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. But it is available on Comixology and through Amazon and through Dark Horse, and naturally through Dark Horse to Things from Another World, and the trade collects the 4 issues of that. So that's my choice there, Dr. Star, and it's just such a poetic name, and the Kingdom of Lost Tomorrows. So that's my pick.
Lost Tomorrows were inside him all along.
Oh, 16-year-old girl. Did you write that in your diary?
Well, that is one of the things. It's like this girl needs to write a diary. Instead, she's writing emails to to a sex columnist who does write back at the end, by the way.
Yeah. Brian, you got anything else for Sina?
Oh my goodness. Do I have no so as I do my beard stroke. So
contemplating.
Are you planning, this is a very selfish question, are you planning on doing any more of your Bear Scout commissions?
No. But not no. We can talk. I'm just still only halfway through the stack I have. So I just need to, but again, it's not no.
No, I know. I did kind of want one, but the thing about them is, if you have not seen them, the Bear Scout pen is coveted. I'm so glad I got one.
Oh yeah.
I was looking for it, and I don't know what I did with my pens. I found my Drew Green pen, and so I know it can't be far behind, but I have no idea where the hell it is. But I'm so tickled to see the people I might know and some I definitely know show up in those outfits. They're delightful. We need to repost those on our page, the Comic Bears page, because I feel like they'd be well received there.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's so funny too, because bears are typically not. I mean, up until recently, it's to be a bear, you had to be hyper masculine on top of everything, and it's just so fun to draw these men in skirts and in really bright dainty colors, and I'm having a blast. It's fun.
I feel like the culture has shifted in such a great way, because when I would go to Bear Bust in Orlando, and there was one specific incident, we had these older bears who were very upset that we brought Ginger Minge and Bendela Krim, and we brought drag queens to a bear event. They were incensed. They were like, this is not a bear event. And then I go to Bear Week for the first time, and it's so much a part of the culture there to not only have drag queens and theater and all this great stuff, but then to go to tea dance and have everybody in their fabulous sarongs and other outfits. It's I like seeing the feminization of that trope, and I'm so thrilled that it's been well received.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been nice.
And I know you're hating every second of it too.
Well, what's funny was I was oh gosh, I didn't necessarily limit it to just bears, and then I was like, are the other people gonna realize they can order these? And I did have to draw a girl. No, but it was a friend of mine from high school, and it was fine. And I have drawn some slimmer bodies lately, and it's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna be okay. I'll be okay.
You'll get through this.
You'll pull through.
There's nothing worse going on right now.
Right.
Nationally, globally. Then Henry. Sorry, he's being an asshole.
Oh. No, I think. I'm really glad you joined us. Obviously, I love you so much, and I definitely have really enjoyed this. And As soon as I can get down to LA again, I'm really excited. I almost made it out there when I was in Vegas visiting my boyfriend at the time when he was living in Vegas, and we were like, I'm going to go to LA and we're going to let everyone know, and it didn't happen. So
yeah. Well, this week we were supposed to, as of last Sunday, we were supposed to be in LA for almost a week, and then head off to Hawaii, and then come back to LA for another week.
Oh,
Rough life, yeah.
We would be hanging out with Braden and Judson, and visiting some of my family and all that stuff. But unfortunately, nope, not this year.
Bummer.
It is.
The last time I was in Los Angeles, I saw a taping of Benson. That's how long.
Oh my God.
Seriously.
Benson.
Yeah.
Is that from the long ago?
I've been to San Francisco, and since, but I've never made it back to LA since
honestly,
I was a teenager.
I don't, and Sina, close your ears. I don't love LA. I love the people I know in LA far more than the city itself. But I've only ever been with my ex like 10 years ago, and I have a feeling I'd have a much better experience now.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you make of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, Bailey's out there, who I miss tremendously, and
who's super skinny now.
Oh, I haven't seen pictures. I need to. Oh.
Yeah, it's on Instagram. He's lost like maybe 100 pounds. I mean, he was a big boy, so 100 pounds isn't like.
Yeah.
But him and Adrian both lost a ton of weight.
That's fantastic. I mean, good for them. Like, that's awesome. I just, I didn't see that. Oh. But anyway.
Yeah, just different target demographic now is all.
They've gone back to Twink. How this happened? No.
Heaven forbid.
I was just watching a Michael Henry video.
Yes. That should be like an honorary Wolf of the Week. If you're not fans of Michael Henry on YouTube, good God, please watch his stuff. I think he's out of LA, I think, right? He's a Hollywood guy.
Yeah, he's in LA.
Jesus. Somewhere. Oh, so good. Every time. Anyway, sorry, that's all I got, Bill.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just gush forever.
All right, Steve, what else you got for Sina?
What have I got for Sina? Well, I'm just so happy to see you again. I think this is the third time that you've been on, that at least that I've also been on as well. But no, it's just wonderful to see you again. I'm glad you are working on all of these wonderful projects. It's so exciting to see you working at Boom, working with DC, with your own creator stuff and with licensed stuff and just all sorts of things. Just getting to experience and enjoy working in all these different characters and comics. So just
fun with it, so.
keep sending me, keep creating all these things, and I will keep buying them and loving them. So
deal, motherfucking deal. Yes.
Yay.
Henry, you were killing me.
Oh, look, you got Henry to do an actual Wolf of the Week.
Oh.
Sina, I just want to make sure that in terms of projects, is there anything else you want to talk about in relation to, more information about getting it together or anything else that you want to discuss?
Getting it together will be great. One of the leads is super into bears, so you get a lot of bears that show up in his bedroom, which is awesome. And, definitely just, for my own pleasure. And then I am, the last issue should be coming out of this mini series I'm doing with IDW called Read Only Memories. That's based off this really cool, super queer video game called 2064 Read Only Memories. And it just turned into this thing. Like, it was, I said yes because I was like, oh, like, why not? Like, okay, like, and then I just really love the project so much. It's a weird sci-fi neo-noir story about a private investigator who is looking into a missing persons case that involves a robot human love story. So it's, and yet somehow it's still within my wheelhouse to be totally like swimming in this weird kind of cyberpunk narrative. But anyway, the fourth issue should finally be coming out soon now that Diamond is opening up. Oh, and I have a story in the Green Lantern 80th anniversary special.
That's so cool.
That's so cool.
Oh,
it was like very daunting, but then I wrote it and it's good. So yeah, things are okay over here, and I miss you guys so much, and I just hope everyone's staying safe, and hopefully we can, maybe New York Comic Con, we can all touch each other again.
Yeah. I don't, it's getting a little, I'm thinking with Broadway announcing that the earliest that they'll do shows is September 7th, I think. I don't know. I'm hoping New York, but
well, with that, they have to do rehearsals and stuff like that,
So we'll see. It's the only thing I worry about is those big shows can be petri dishes to begin with. That I could definitely see like a postponement from a health perspective instead of any kind of planning thing. But
either
we'll hope. Yeah, and also we
doused with hand sanitizer.
We've never done that comic book bears pajama party that we really should do with you sometime.
There we go.
So
deal or no deal.
We'll do that next time. Deal. Okay, well, we're going to wrap this episode of the Comic Book Bears up, and when we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment, where we spotlight something which may be a comic book, but it also may be a film or a television show or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, I'm still getting used to this, may be interested in sampling. So Sina, just to not put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, is there anything that you might want to spotlight there that might not necessarily be a comic book that you want to?
Yeah. Lady Gaga's Chromatic.
Yes.
Ordered one.
Excellent.
Of course you did. I was so tempted. It was $30, but if you factor in the cost of the album, it's like $20. And I guess for that kind of basic jock, it's pretty basic, other than being pink. And Lady Gaga,
I mean, I haven't seen it in pink. Like, I haven't seen pink jock straps. I'm sure if I looked, I could find one, but don't tell me that.
It'll look fabulous.
Excellent.
Throw it over to Steve. Steve, what's your Wolf of the Week?
My Wolf of the Week is a movie that I think everybody else has already seen on Netflix, but I hadn't until just this past week. So we watched Code 8, which was the movie with Robbie Amell and Stephen Amell playing two people who look very much alike but are completely unrelated in the context of the story, in an alternate reality where people are born with powers and there's millions of powered individuals, but over the generations or over the decades, they've become more of an underclass and are treated with a lot of discrimination and aren't allowed to work and are treated like criminals just for existing. And Robbie Amell, because I can tell them apart, Robbie Amell plays an electrical powered person who's trying to make ends meet and his mother's sick, and he ends up falling in with a criminal crew run by Stephen Amell and a couple other powered individuals, and he gets involved in sort of a drug, sort of like an underground mafia drug ring and all sorts of things, trying to get the big score, save his mother who's dying of cancer, and not get killed in the process. But it's actually, for a simple story, it's very well done. The effects are great, and it's surprisingly good for something that came out of nowhere, more or less. I think it was based on a short film or something that had come out a few years ago, but it's excellent. Code 8, it's on Netflix.
Okay, throwing over to Brian. Brian, what is your Wolf of the Week?
I just want to reiterate the Pride postcards because it is such a cool project. It has got 4 days left from today, the 14th of May. So, I mean, if you're not familiar with it, go check it out on Kickstarter or our Comic Bears Facebook page. And just keep checking out what Sina's been doing and support all of our favorite creators out there, because with the con season sort of truncated or not happening, I think all of everyone needs love right now, and I'm happy to broadcast that as many times as we need to.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, the stupid wolf is the Scoob is coming out tomorrow, and I'm not a big Scooby Doo fan, but it did provide a Blue Falcon figure. The first time an affordable Blue Falcon figure I've been able to put one in my hands. Waited 43 years for this, so yeah. There's that.
It came with Muttley.
But my actual wolf of the week is music oriented, and it's connected with our guest because Sina rhymes with Kina.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, there was a period, you can see the music all here. I'm even wearing a B-52 shirt. Very early 2000s, there was this period where there were a lot of really good urban alternative acts coming out. Probably the biggest ones were Maxwell and what's her? Angie Stone. But there were also some acts that didn't really break big, but had great albums out, like Floetry, the singer Reese from Philadelphia, God, who else? Van Hunt. Some great albums that in the early 2000s from this particular hybrid of alternative music and urban influences. And this woman who Kina, who put out an album in 2000. She had a dance hit with Girl from the Gutter, and I haven't listened to this in seriously like 16, 17 years. And she pulls a couple Mary J's in there where she puts her name in the song, like, oh no, poor Kina. But Sina rhymes with Kina, that's what made me get it out. And for most of the week, I've been playing this. So that's my wolf for the week. It is on Spotify. And in amazing synchronicity, she's released her first new music online in 14 years this week.
Wow.
Including a really beautiful cover of Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes. So that's my wolf of the week. Yeah, go ahead.
I forgot I had one more thing, and I completely spaced
go ahead.
on this. So I don't know if anyone else knows about this. I know you guys do. But Sina also has been moonlighting as... No?
You're done. You're good. No, don't worry.
But I love it. Oh.
Well,
I wrote a song about blowjobs.
You put out an album, my friend. Like, it's not just like one song. It's 2 songs, but still, like, it is fun. It is super fun. You know what it reminded me of? Oh God, I said this last time and I forgot now. What was the queer punk band in the
Pansy Division?
It reminded me a little bit of Pansy Division in like an unplugged version. But I feel like now you just got to put a band together and step up that, like make it a little harder and you got it. Like it's the same. Like it's great. It's so good. It's fun. It's on Bandcamp.
Right. Well, I mean, I have nothing else.
They're all the way over there.
It's called Shay Tunes or She Tunes?
Oh, Shay Tune, yeah.
Shay Tune. Oh, duh. I'm smart.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's on Bandcamp. Go check it out.
Yeah. Speaking of Pansy Division, Patrick Goodwin, who was in the band, is a friend of mine.
No way.
Yeah, and he eventually went a much more metallic route. So he one band was Dirty Power, and another band which he kind of came into, which actually had some really decent notoriety in metal circles, was Hammers of Misfortune. So he just kind of went a different route from the punk of that particular thing.
They were a great band. I loved it because as a young queer kid, like having any queer music was amazing in the 90s, but especially some of it was pretty raunchy and fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So that's what the songs reminded me of. I was just like, oh yeah, that's awesome. We need more songs about that. And
also plus the graphics. I mean, the cover of 9 Inch Nails, it speaks to you. What can you say? Okay, we're wrapping this one up for good. Again, Sina, thank you so much for joining us on this episode, and continued good luck and continued good fortune in everything you do. And we will have a pajama party. We have to.
Yay. Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime, my brother, anytime. So again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You're hairy, heavy homos that talk about comics, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in or view. I'm still getting used to this. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. If you want to write to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. And if you want to listen to us, then please subscribe to us through iTunes, listen to us through Stitcher Radio, or you can catch us through some of the other podcatching platforms. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear